first item of business is approval of, well, why don't we introduce, or why don't we take a roll call?
All right, Mayor Blazer,
Here.
Alderman Austin,
Here.
Lee Tao,
Here.
Eric Doven,
Here.
Ben Gaudreau, Thad Kubishak,
Excused.
Jeff is excused as well. We have a quorum with 4. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to the approval of reports from December 4th meeting. What are your wishes?
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additions or corrections? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That motion carries. We're on to the engineering part of our report. Item 2 is a request for the engineering department to dedicate parkland property from Witter Park addressed as 681 Chestnut Street, parcel ID 3407850 for the purpose of right-of-way totaling approximately 1,411.04 square feet and is depicted on the attached Lincoln Street Transportation Project Plat 2022-14 and recommended to the council a resolution dedicating said property. See the attached resolution. Planning Department?
Thank you. With any dedication of property, Plan Commission is the acting body statutorily that needs to make a recommendation to the council. Joe can describe the project further to you, but ultimately it involves the Lincoln Street reconstruction project slated to occur later this year. And the component that we're identifying for dedication currently is only the Witterfield portion. You'll see on the transportation plat, there are a few other parcels that are identified to eventually have right-of-way, but those, because they're privately held, will be acted upon later. With that, staff is recommending approval.
Any questions or comments from the commission? Or for Joe? He's here present, the city engineer.
Motion to approve the land dedication from Witter Park?
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That motion carries. We're on to item 3, which is 23-001248, Engineering Department. Request for a site plan review to perform a site improvements at 40 North 4th Avenue, parcel ID 3402593 and parcel ID 3402594. Community Development Department?
Go ahead, Carrie.
Thank you, Mayor Blazer and members of the commission. So yes, this is a parking lot project proposed from the engineering department for the lots right across the street from City Hall. So these are a couple photos. It's actually 2 lots. One is adjacent to the garage. It's used for parking city vehicles, and one is a combination of permit parking and public parking. And some background on these 2 lots. The parking lots are located within the downtown commercial B1 district. Parking is a permitted use in the district, and the proposed parking lots combined are approximately 17,262 square feet. Lots A and B serve for a combination of city parking, public parking, and permit parking. Some are specifically allocated to be city parking, overflow parking, and then some are for public parking and permit parking. And the lots are in a pretty substantial state of disrepair and are in need of reconstruction. And you can see on the site plan here that it's a combination of 90-degree angled parking on Lot A, and then Lot B is 60-degree angled parking with some nice landscaping that is proposed to be integrated. So standards of review for the project, dimensional standards and requirements for ingress and egress are met. Again, the proposed parking meets a community need, but it's not defined required parking, so there's no need to fulfill a parking requirement or any analysis that way. Landscaping points are met. There are just some real minor changes to allocations that the engineering department, of course, is happy to do just some swap outs for a large tree versus a medium tree. There are no changes to lighting proposed, And in summary, the reconstruction and landscaping additions will be a significant improvement on those lots. And so, Community Development Department is recommending approval with conditions. Again, that a revised landscape plan with that minor change be submitted for review and approval. Of course, the engineering is very familiar with this, the engineering department, but that all applicable right-of-way and stormwater permits be obtained, and then that all applicable permits through the city shall be obtained. And then just that Community Development Department staff shall have the authority to approve minor modifications to the plans. And of course, City Engineer Joe Eichsted's here, so if there are any questions specific for him or the engineering department, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions. And I will go ahead and turn it back over to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Does the commission have any questions, comments, concerns? I know this is long overdue. That parking lot's in pretty bad shape. Okay, seeing none, what are your wishes? I guess I'll make the motion to approve the site plan review and also the staff's conditions.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'll abstain.
Okay. Mr. Dobbin's going to abstain. Seeing no other question or comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
And Mr. Dobbin abstaining.
Mayor, could you call out maybe Eric not Eric.
Yep, I
That
will.
Ben can hear us and see if we can have audio with him on Zoom.
Sounds good. Ben's on Zoom with us. Ben, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I could just hear the tail end of that vote.
Sounds good. We are on item number 3, just finished up with a vote on that one, and we'll be starting item 4. Thank you for joining us. We are on item 4, 23-001206, City of Wisconsin Rapids. We have a public hearing and action on a request to amend Chapter 11 zoning ordinance, Appendix A and Appendix B, specifically relating to personal storage facilities to modify the land use definition and to allow the use of conditional use permits in the general commercial B2 district. Community Development Department.
Thank you again, Mayor Blazer and members of the commission. So I'm sure you remember from last meeting, there was some discussion about the city's analysis of personal storage facilities and how we could maybe modify this to make it just a better fit for our community. And so staff has undertaken a comprehensive analysis of personal storage facilities, mostly statewide, but just kind of looked just at some different types of communities with different compositions and just what's out there. And as a reminder, at present, personal storage facilities are permitted in only the general industrial M1 district. They're permitted by right in that district, and they're conditionally permitted in the heavy industrial M2 district. So it's limited to industrial districts. There's no other permitted avenues for personal storage. And after survey of several communities across the state, it's not uncommon to allow personal storage facilities in the most intensive commercial district with a conditional use permit. So looking at our commercial district citywide, the B2, the general commercial district, is the city's most intensive commercial district. So staff is proposing allowing the use in this district with a conditional use permit. But just to go into a little more detail of the thinking behind that, so as we know, in our city, the B2 district is largely comprised of those areas along our main commercial corridors. And as you get further interior to the city, the lots tend to be smaller. As you work your way outward in the city, the lots tend to be larger. And staff feels that these uses would be well suited to some of these lots, but typically the lots that are more tend to be located on the outskirts and not as much on the interior of the city. So that is the thinking behind commercial districts requiring a 5-acre parcel minimum as opposed to the 2-acre that is now required for industrial districts. So we're not proposing to change the 2-acre for industrial, but if it is a commercial site, that it be limited to 5-acre, thereby tending to be the parcels located that tend to be more located on the outskirts, and all that and also that just would be sufficiently sized to accommodate this type of development well. And the other concern or item that was kind of on our radar is just thinking of the aesthetic aspect when you're thinking of a commercial district as opposed to an industrial district. So to account for suitability, scale, and design, the architectural guidelines in Chapter 11 zoning that we often talk about when we have commercial projects before this commission, combined with the ability to add conditions to conditional use permit approval, will help to ensure that proposed development adds to the architectural appeal of the area, is screened appropriately, and blends with surrounding properties. So here are just a couple photos, and there are a couple more in the staff memo that just show how, some of the aspects that we may want integrated when we're looking at a personal storage facility that would be in a commercial district versus an industrial district, that we'd probably be thinking about it differently, and we'd probably want some architectural items that are typically incorporated into commercial buildings. So more specifically then, with regard to the code, what we would be recommending is that a personal storage facility, which is described here and supplemental standards here, remain as it is in the M1 and M2 districts, and then that it also be conditionally permitted in the B2 district. But again, the minimum lot area would be 2 acres for industrial districts, which is no change basically, and 5 acres in commercial zoning districts. We also would want to note that in the case of commercial properties, that any vehicle storage would be required to be located behind the rear plane of the principal building, and that it would need to be screened appropriately. So we wouldn't want that to be something at the front of a development. We would want that to be recessed and not visible when in a commercial area. Oops. So these are the changes we're recommending to that code section, and then I'll turn it back over to the commission for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll do the public hearing first, and then we'll turn it over to the commission. It's 4:15. I'd like to open a public hearing regarding this item. I'll call 3 times. If anybody wishes to speak against this proposal. For a second time, does anybody wish to speak against the proposal? And for a third and final time, does anybody wish to speak against the proposal? All right, I'll call it. Does anybody wish to speak in favor of this proposed change? And for a second time, does anybody wish to speak in favor of the proposed change? Third and final time, does anybody wish to speak in favor of the proposed change? Okay, it's 4:16. We can close the public hearing. Commission, do you have any questions? Good.
Yeah, just one, on the topic of the minimum lot area, 5 acres, I assume that acreage has been vetted with this particular project to ensure that that's not going to create any hardship?
Correct. I believe that lot is a little over 7, if I remember right, but yes, yep, it would be consistent with that lot. And then we did do an analysis, just kind of citywide, just kind of a rough analysis, and just kind of looking at different parcels. It seemed to be a fit just generally as well, where we would likely want to see the development versus where it probably wouldn't fit as well. But yes, it is consistent with the project that we looked at.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, what are your wishes?
I would just like to thank the staff's time for, looking at the different areas and find something that works here. So I appreciate that. I will make a motion to amend Chapter 11 as outlined in the staff report.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to make the amendment. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That motion carries. We're on to item 5, which is 23-001207, City of Wisconsin Rapids, public hearing and action on a request to amend Chapter 11 zoning ordinance, Appendix B, to amend the land use description of mobile vending and permit an exception within the residential zoning districts. Community Development Department.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is in response to discussion last month regarding whether or not we wanted to provide an exception for an ice cream truck vehicle or similar kind of retail product vehicle that is a little bit more unique than a traditional food truck, right? So something that, you know, is typically always on the move, only stops when there's a patron. The stops are very short. And so we took a look at the code and are recommending the following change, which there's a location requirement under the definition of mobile vendor. And so it identifies that the locations which are prohibited in residential districts in Appendix A shall apply. So we've clarified that an ice cream vending vehicle shall be exempt from those location requirements, meaning that you could operate an ice cream vending vehicle as defined within those districts. And then the second addition or amendment is to define ice cream vending vehicle. So definition 156 up on the screen and in your packet creates that definition and also clarifies that it shall not be deemed a refrigerated truck like a Swan's truck or something like that, that would be separate. Granted, that's, you know, like a door-to-door sales or delivery type use. That's it.
Thank you. We'll do the same thing again. I will open a public hearing at 4:19. Does anybody wish to speak against the request? How about, why don't we finish the public hearing first, Jason, and then we can do the question part and have that discussion? Yep, no problem. Nope, you're good. Thank you. For a second time, does anybody wish to speak against the request? And for a third and final time, does anybody wish to speak against the proposed change? Okay, for the first time, does anybody want to speak in favor of the proposed change? For a second time, does anybody wish to speak in favor of the proposed change? And for a third and final time, does anybody wish to speak in favor? Okay, we'll close the public hearing at 4:20 and we'll start the discussion phase. Commission?
I would recommend the gentleman in the audience, if he cares to speak.
Yeah, Jason, would you mind coming up to the microphone? Because that's the only way anybody can hear you, or the public. Is the microphone, yeah, just pop it up and then a green button on the bottom?
Okay. Well, the only question I had was the, not including the refrigerant. Is that refrigerant? Where it can't have a freezer, it's got to be having on ice or something?
So that sentence, if you read it, says ice cream vending vehicle shall not include refrigerated retail trucks which deliver pre-ordered ice cream or other frozen dairy products to a customer's residence.
So that's like the Schwann's man.
That whole sentence in context, it would mean that an ice cream truck is not a steak delivery vehicle.
Okay.
Or a Swan's truck, which is pre-ordered, you know. A merchant comes to your door and says, how many steaks do you want to order? And then they deliver them at a different date. That does not meet the definition of ice cream.
Okay, that was the only thing I was confused about, because I got a freezer, so I'm like, that's
Right.
got refrigerant, so. Okay, thank you, guys.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree that, you know, the traditional ice cream truck should be allowed in our residential areas, as we spoke about at our last meeting. That's a staple in a lot of communities, and I want to make sure that we allow that opportunity here. But what are your wishes? I'll make a motion that we approve the change. Yes, it is a motion. Absolutely. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? That motion carries. And we are on to item number 6, adjournment. What are your wishes?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned.